على هامش قمة مجالس الأجندات العالمية في دبي التقيت روبرت جرينهيل مؤسس مبادرة جلوبال كندا وعضو مجلس أجندة الحوكمة العالمية، فسألته أولا إن كان بات لزاما على المؤسسات التقليدية إعادة النظر في أسباب وجودها وطرق عملها.
There's no doubt there needs to be a complete rethink of global governance. Many of the institutions were formed 50 or 60 years ago. There's something like the G7 that when they were created 30 years ago, the G7 represented more than half the global economy. Now it represents less than a third. So clearly it doesn't have the credibility it did in the past. So there's a lot of thinking about what are the roles that intergovernmental organizations should be playing. What role should the G20, for example, be playing? How can it be effective? But also, it's not just a question of ensuring different governments have voices, it's other groups as well that want to be involved more directly in decision making. So it's clearly a very challenging but fertile time for rethinking how global governance should take place.
بماذا تخاطر قوى العالم الكبرى اليوم عندما ترفض التخلي عن مواقعها القيادية على رأس هذه المنظمات؟ بماذا تخاطر عندما ترفض أن تفسح المجال لغيرها بالمشاركة؟
Well, if there isn't a more equitable division of decision making, these institutions risk becoming either irrelevant or dysfunctional. And so by giving up a little bit of that power or looking at more creative ways of sharing decision making, it would probably mean that these traditional powers would actually see the global system in a more stable and prosperous way than it would be otherwise.
هل يمكن الحديث اليوم عن مؤسسات جديدة أو هيئات نجحت بالفعل في أخذ جزء من الدور الذي كانت تلعبه منظمات حكم العالم التقليدية؟
Well, the G20 is a great example. I mean, that's something that's really created over the last 20 years at the finance ministers level, and then because of the crisis in 2008 at the head of government level, it really is the Economic Security Council of the world. It's got an incredibly important role to play. What's fascinating and challenging about the G20 is its structure and decision-making process really is being made up as they go along. It doesn't even have a permanent secretariat at this point. So that's probably one of the most exciting new developments over the last few years. I think another really interesting example is an organization like the Global Fund to deal with HIV, AIDS, TB, and malaria, which is really a private-public partnership. Not just a coalition of different governments, but also the private sector and key universities and think tanks being involved as well.
على صعيد المنظمات التقليدية كمنظمة الأمم المتحدة، هل يمكن الحديث عن أزمة قيادة تعيشها هذه المنظمات؟
You know, if you look through the UN's history, there's always been challenges and crises. There was a period in the 1950s where the Soviet Union and its allies weren't really positively engaged in it. There was a moment right after 1991 when the UN was able to function in a very free-flowing and effective way. I think it's going through a new period of challenges right now, but I wouldn't say it's a crisis of leadership in the UN. I think it's a crisis of leadership more globally.
في مختلف بقاع العالم يعيش هذا العالم توترات جيوسياسية. هل ترى بأنه من الضروري أن تكون هناك منظمات إقليمية فاعلة ربما تقوم بحل المستوى الأول من المشاكل والتوترات في منطقتها؟
It's a really interesting question. Certainly in places like Africa, the rise of the OAU that became the African Union is playing a very important role to provide a regional voice and a regional perspective dealing with issues such as peacekeeping, such as legitimacy of different governments in a way that a global body couldn't. So clearly regional organizations have a role to play. However, they can't be the only organization that have a role to play. There does need to be global engagement as well. So those are the kind of developments that need to be balanced properly.
ماذا تقدم قمة عالمية مثل هذه القمة التي نحضرها اليوم وكيف تشارك في هذا الحوار العالمي؟
Well, it contributes in two or three different ways. One, it does bring together people from across the world and across different societies to actually exchange ideas in a very creative fashion. Secondly, it allows us not just to have experts in one field, but experts in other fields as well come together. So when you're looking at issues such as the governance of water systems, having people from different perspectives come in is very helpful. I mean, the other element that this provides is because it's taking place here in Dubai, which is such a fascinating example itself of real innovation and what the United Emirates has done in terms of its own transformation in the last 15 or 20 years. It's actually in a context of the possibility of progress. And so, there couldn't be a better context for these kind of conversations.